Hello there, and welcome to another edition of the Husker Online Show. Sean Callahan, Steve Sipple, Robin Washett. Very grateful that you guys can't see the back of my head right now because I had an adventure today. I had an adventure before the show, and thankfully, actually, one of our sponsors of the show got me squared away, CHI on Yankee Hill Road. And by no means is this meant to be a plug for them, but I went outside to get my newspaper because I'm old school. I still get a paper.
What paper do you get?
I get the Wall Street Journal and the Omaha World Herald.
God, you are old school.
It's part of the routine.
And then what
And
happened?
I took one step on my porch, and I was wearing slippers that have rubber traction, and I just flipped back, and then my head slammed on the metal door frame of our storm door.
Ew.
And it was a perfect slice down the back of my head. This happened in the 10 o'clock hour, and I would say by 11:30 noon, I have 7 staples in the back of my head.
So did you drive yourself to?
No, Lisa, my wife, took me.
Oh, she was home because there's
no school today.
What would you have done had she not been home?
Well, the hardest thing was getting a hold of the blood because when you cut your head,
yeah,
it squirts out like a fountain.
And
come on, Robin.
No,
it happened to me.
Blood just oozes out, so you have to
squirting out like a fountain.
Yeah, I mean there was
like pulses out like that. So I hit the back of my head playing basketball, and that's what happened. It was like a little squirt gun shooting out of the back of my head.
Ooh, boy,
and so we had to get it closed or at least contained. And then we went to CHI, walked in, paid a $35 copay, and got 7 staples. No numbing, by the way. They can numb you, but they said it actually will make it wouldn't do much. So they just took a staple gun right to my head.
This is awesome.
I'm looking at it right now. It's gruesome. We would show you, but those with weak stomachs might not be able to handle it.
It's a little
gory.
Yeah.
But I made it. Thankfully, my wife was there to coach me through and get me out. And she waited out on the parking lot. And I mean, I was in and out in an hour.
Yeah.
She went to Starbucks and came back and got me. And
very concerned.
I had staples in my head.
And Sip ran him through concussion protocol, so we're good. He passed.
Sip and I are very much the same, though. Like, we kind of downplay things like this.
It's blood.
I mean, I had Bell's palsy
gushing from your head,
and you could mistake Bell's palsy for a stroke. And I drove myself to the ER.
It's fine.
I love this stuff. I love it.
The show must go on.
That's right. The people need
we need the
off-season
show.
Husker talk.
I mean, if we didn't do the show, we'd hear about it from our sponsors and our listeners. But
said blood was gushing from his head like a sprinkler.
my girls were like, "Are you still going to make pancakes?"
Yeah.
We had pancakes.
They don't care.
We had pancakes for lunch. I got home and I made pancakes.
Well, that sounds great. Pancakes for lunch for the girls.
It's Ash Wednesday, so I came.
Had me over.
I came right in. I fell right into Lent, and here we go.
Invite me over.
I make good pancakes.
I bet you do.
But okay, let's get on. As Bill Self once told Doug Gottlieb, let's talk ball.
Let's talk ball, guys.
Let's talk some ball now.
Sean, that was kind of interesting, though. You got to be more careful.
I know. I
know how you are. You're always in a rush.
Because I have to worry about 55 million things,
including us. Me.
Got a lot to babysit.
But football wise, I want to hit on this. I think conference realignment, that's been a big topic of discussion. I think this week we got a pretty big piece of where it's heading, and nothing at least is going to happen now until at least 2030. The ACC has been able to get things settled down until then, with particularly Florida State and Clemson, where they've rearranged the payment structures where teams like Florida State, teams like Clemson, maybe even Miami, North Carolina, they're going to get more money than the other members.
Upper echelon.
Kind of like what the Big 12 TV deal actually was like back in the day. Nebraska, we forget, made more than Iowa State back then. It wasn't an equalized deal. So that's kind of how they're going to go. But by 2030, the buyout to leave the ACC will only be $75 million, which in that, it was over 300 million, I think, before that.
Okay.
So it's setting up for those teams by 2030 to maybe leave, get themselves in the AAU. In Florida State's case, they're trying to get in the AAU.
Yeah. Yeah. Here's what my interest is not in what happens in the ACC in 2035 or Florida State ever gets into AAU. I could care less. What I'm interested in is stability. And if you're telling me this represents stability, particularly in the Big Ten, I'm all for it. I think college athletics, college football in general, just the instability wears people out. Just a constant flux. We're changing the playoff again. We're going to do 2 years this way, and then we're going to change it up again. I mean,
so the rich teams can make more money
for whatever reason.
The well-heeled teams,
right? But I like the idea of the Big Ten being the Big Ten now and playing this bunch of teams for an extended period.
Yeah, it's nice to actually, like you said, have some sort of like expectation of what your season is going to be for the next few years, to where like the Big Ten's gone from having divisions to not having divisions, to renaming divisions, to now adding 4 more teams to the league. And so they're just like within the conference, let alone the national scale,
100.
like the rapidly changing format of the conference.
Media days in Vegas.
Things the way, yeah. I mean, that's actually
I'm okay with that one.
No complaints there.
Yeah.
But I mean, I'm with you, Sip. Like things just need to slow down for a minute, and even if it's just a couple years, just to have a couple years of, all right, this is what we're doing. This is what it's going to look like. Just proceed accordingly.
College sports to me, it seems as like it's just a lot of talking heads going blah 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 blah, and yelling about all these different matters, money matters, which teams are on the move, which teams aren't. It's just, I don't know. I love this. I hope you're right, Sean. Do you think this represents stability?
Yeah, because of they're going to get more money, enough money to stay, and the Big Ten's not inviting them. Like right now, in this current state, the Big Ten can't get enough money to make the move justifiable, where they will increase people's payouts.
So here's my question: does Florida State and Clemson, like, do they just assume that they're always going to have a move to the SEC or the Big Ten in their back pocket? And is that realistic? Like,
I don't think so.
I mean, is it that sure of a thing that they can just prolong a move like this and drop all these lawsuits to get out of the ACC? And is it a safe assumption that they will have that next, I guess, step up to one of the 2 power conferences?
I think the next move might be bigger than that. I think you're going to see a deal where bigger brands everywhere will get more money. And, like the conference deals for the Big Ten might pay Ohio State. They might pay Michigan more money than Purdue.
Okay.
And I think that's what the thought is. In 5 to 7 years, the new Big Ten deal could resemble more what this current ACC deal is, to continue to appease the bigger brands to stay with you. I mean, there's just a lot there. You hope it doesn't get that way, but a lot has changed. And the one thing with this new deal is I think Florida State and Clemson and teams like Miami, they have to play Notre Dame now more. So they will automatically draw. The ACC has an X amount of games against Notre Dame, 5 or 6 games a year. I forget what, it might be 6 against the ACC teams. And those upper echelon teams that receive more money as part of that agreement, they have to play Notre Dame more often.
Okay.
Because they need to monetize that inventory to the fullest. And that's a big part of it, is putting good on good. But if we go to guaranteed bids, which I know a lot of people are against that, automatic qualifying bids, the ACC would only get 2 probably. What happens in a scenario where Clemson, Miami, and Florida State, and maybe North Carolina or someone like, they're all good, and at least maybe one of those teams gets shut out because of that auto bid rule. I think that's the one fear people have, where the SEC and the Big Ten, they want the auto bids.
Of course they do, because they get 4 apiece.
Well, and then they can schedule as hard as they want without. They'll make more money on the regular season and still guarantee playoff access.
North Carolina is the interesting one to me because of the investment they're making, especially into football. I mean, they got Bill Belichick now. They got a $1.5 million GM on their staff right now. So, like, everybody's talking about Clemson, Florida State. What if North Carolina suddenly, I mean, they might have more leverage than anyone in that conference right now, because the Big Ten wants them. The SEC wants them. Like, they might have the ability to make that jump more than any team in that conference.
Yeah, they don't get talked about probably enough.
Especially if they win in football.
Oh, yeah, some of that's a basketball discussion too.
Sure, they got both.
Yeah, the Big Ten's a traditional basketball conference. I mean, it loves its basketball.
And the SEC is the best basketball conference in the country right now. But North Carolina, I think about Jim Delaney, who was a North Carolina graduate. I mean,
how happy would the former commissioner be if North Carolina joined the fray,
Mm-hmm.
the basketball fray?
Mm-hmm.
It's not going to happen in the near future. So I'm fine with that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the other thing I want to hit on, guys, as we turn the page here in opening headlines, I want to hit on one Nebraska baseball thing, because it is significant news. Mason McConaughey, their leading pitcher, their Friday night ace, is out for the year. So
arm injury.
Husker baseball, they're around 500. I think one game below.
2 games.
4-6. Are they 4-6? So
4-6.
By no means a horrible start. I mean, they're about kind of where they are every year at this time when they play that opening stretch. Sometimes they can get to 6-4, 7-3. They're 4-6, but this is a big blow for Will Bolt now as we close opening headlines, that they're going to be without their ace. And this is a team that the last 2 weekends has had some pitching issues.
Yeah, and McConaughey's had some issues. He wasn't off to a great start, but he is their Friday night guy. I'm just looking at Joseph Meyer's story. So it means the left-hander Will Walsh moves back into the weekend rotation with Ty Horn and Jackson Brockett, who have been there. It's a. Why do I say that about McConaughey? He's pitched 13.1 innings this year, struck out 19. Allowed 11 hits and 9 runs. So he's been okay. But this is a D1. This is a D1 preseason All-American, D1 baseball preseason.
Yeah, he's regarded as one of the best pitchers in college baseball going into this season. And while he struggled, that's a massive blow, especially they already lost Tucker Timmerman for extended time with that face injury. And so they're going to have to go pretty deep into that pitching depth. And as Joseph mentioned, they're probably have to rely on some freshmen to step up and play more than maybe they expected. So there's going to be a massive ripple effect here.
Yeah.
All right. When we come back, guys, we're going to talk more about the assistant coaches. We heard from Mike Ekeler, Terry Bradden, Addison Williams. We'll hit on that in our next 2 segments. You're listening here to the Husker Online Show. We're back here on the Husker Online Show. Sean Callahan, Steve Sipple, Robin Washett here. This segment of the Husker Online Show brought to you by Public Rec. If you're not familiar with Public Rec, it is versatile. It is premium athletic leisure wear, even stuff that you can wear to work out and about. They have dress slacks that are comfortable. They have long sleeve t-shirts, shorts, you name it, quarter zips, all types of different colors, styles, fits, how you want your pants to fit. They have it all. And, it's very, very well-made, high-end material on their items. I've got some of the shirts right now. Robin, I think, has got some of the items too, and really impressed with Public Rec. If you've never tried them out, we've got a deal. We'll give you 20% off with the promo code Husker at publicrec.com. That is promo code Husker at publicrec.com. They're going to have something for you in whatever size, whatever color, whatever you're looking for. Thanks again to Public Rec for sponsoring us here on the Husker Online Show. But I want to get into Mike Ekeler. We heard from him here this week for the first time since coming back to Nebraska. And both Sip, Robin, and I, we knew Coach Eckler dating back to 2008 when he got here. And he was here for a few seasons under Bo Pelini. And then from there, he made the joke. He describes his path, the old country song, I've been everywhere. And, because he named all the different places he's been and coaches he's worked for. And it is pretty remarkable, Sip, how many different people Mike Ekeler has been able to watch and learn under from his time at Nebraska, which technically was his first full-time coaching job outside of like a graduate assistant intern role.
Right. I mean, he's crisscrossed the country. I can remember vividly when he went to Indiana, when he left Nebraska and went to Indiana, then went to USC, then went to Georgia, then went to North Texas, then went to North Carolina, then went to Kansas, coached for Les Miles, then went back to North Texas, then to Tennessee. I mean, Now, the other thing I always remember about Mike, and I've talked to him a lot over the years. I mean, we stayed in touch pretty well. And there was a point in his career where he decided, I'm going to make special teams my deal, and it was long. I mean, it was probably around right before COVID. He just coached special teams in 2020 at North Texas. That's it. And then at Tennessee, that was his main job for 4 years. And he's done really well. he loves special teams, and a lot of it is because a lot of the skills, as he says, are transferable. And the other thing I'd want to say about Eckler, and you guys saw it yesterday, I think it's really valuable to have a special teams coach that commands a room as well as he does, because it's usually the first meeting of the day. It kind of can set the tone. And if you have a person that's entertaining, he's entertaining. And not that it helps. He expresses himself well. He can get your attention. He'll be very creative about, he'll emphasize it won't be this. Oh God. Hey honey, I gotta open I got to open up tomorrow with my media. I haven't even thought about what I'm going to say. It will never be that.
Nope.
So that can be a tone setter, but you got to know what you're doing though. The what you know to the kids is big. And he knows it. His track record at Tennessee was really good.
Well, in his coaching, but then he also has done it himself. I mean, he was the wild gunner wedge buster at Kansas State.
No
I mean,
doubt,
like that's
Rob.
where he made his mark
No
as a
doubt.
player. And
Yep.
you see, like, you talk about just kind of like how intense he is. Well, maximize that by like 100, and that's what he was as a player. And so I think that's when you have someone that knows what they're doing just from an X's and O's standpoint, that's obviously important. But then someone who's also been there and thrived as a special teams standout and understands the doors that thriving on special teams can open for a player, especially young players. I thought it was really notable that he said that at Tennessee, they didn't have a starter on special teams.
No,
They're
freshmen
all
walk-ons.
young guys and walk-ons.
Yep.
And so the opportunity of special teams, you know, you want to talk about this minimized roster, like the idea of just stashing guys away for 2 or 3 years, like that's gone now. Guys need to play, and they need to be able to develop as much as they possibly can. Special teams could be a great opportunity for that, and Mike Ekeler is someone who perfectly understands that.
Yeah, and he won't be coaching a position either. This will, I believe, be the first time that he's not
one of them. Yeah, North Texas he didn't.
But he won't be with linebackers or another group. So it's strictly special teams, which will give, you know, and he strikes me as a guy that works a lot of hours. Like he's going to put the time in and really get to know. And I've heard that already, that he's met with guys multiple times in a week now, like several. You know, he spends a lot of time getting to know the players, who they are. So that will be something to watch, just how he puts this all together. I do think the kicker situation, if there's one, is worth watching. How will Alvano come back?
Tristan Alvano
Off the surgery, and is it just assumed that John Hull is the guy, or will Alvano kind of make a run at it? And if he doesn't make a run at it, you know, with the 105 rule, how do they manage that moving forward? Because they also have Nico on this team too. I'm not going to try the last name. Robin's better.
Adamanelli.
There you go.
He saved your bacon. By the way, me and Sean need our bacon saved. We've botched some.
Oh
names.
God, we Sipple had one this week.
Corey. I kept
Instead of
calling
Corey Campbell, he called him Corey Cooper,
10 times probably.
the former safety from Chicago.
And and also I had a trouble with I was calling Trey Palmer James.
And we could do the best show ever, like for an hour, and the comments are going to be flooded by that.
They should though. I mean, Corey Cooper's, that's unforgivable.
It's Corey Campbell.
I know. I say Corey Cooper every time with Corey Campbell.
Corey Cooper was a good safety.
Rob, you can criticize.
At least with Jordan Ball, the Jordine one, you can just kind of go with. But
she spelled it Jordyn. I always read it as Jordine.
You're doubling down on that still.
It's Jordan. Hey, by the way, the other thing about Eckler, now this is the thing that excites me more than anything. At Tennessee ranked in his 4 years first or second in the SEC in punt return average all 4 seasons. They average, Rob, Sean, you can't even imagine this because we haven't seen it in so long. They averaged 15.7 yards per punt return in 2024, and in 2022, 16.5 average.
How many returns of 15 yards does Nebraska have all season last year?
Yeah, if they have one of 15 yards, we're up in the press box going, wait, what?
They fixed it.
I'm like, Robin, write that in your 10 things.
That's a note.
Yeah, it shouldn't be that big of a deal, but we've been without that piece for so long, we forgot what it looked like. Eckler is beyond a home run higher. Now, they got to do it. I get it.
Right.
But Sean, you mentioned the young guys thing. It won't be. I don't think he liked that at Tennessee. That it was a hypo call. It was a Heupel call. Now, I'm speaking out of turn a little bit, but I've talked to Mike, and he never says I didn't like it, but it was a Heupel deal.
I can't imagine coordinating a element of football with just a bunch of backups and walk-ons, like
Right.
and not getting any of your best players.
He didn't get the best players.
Yeah.
It keeps those guys happy at a program like Tennessee, probably keeps them engaged. You know, you're trying to get as many players going as possible.
Some of it too is a kickoff discussion where why put your best players on kickoff when the ball's just flying through the end zone? Why have them take those extra steps in a game?
Oh.
You know, when the ball's just flying through the end.
Nebraska's strategy on kickoffs, though, has been to put it up high and make them return it.
Okay.
And we've seen Nebraska at times this year was really good at pinning teams inside the 20.
The other thing about Eckler that resonates with people here, during his tenure at Tennessee, they blocked 8 punts and allowed 1 blocked punt in 4 years and 0 blocked field goals.
1 in 4 years.
Yes.
Nebraska had 2.5.
2 and 1/2.
1/2, yes.
1 in 4 years. I mean, this is all adds up. Like, I mean, we did point him out early. Like, this should be someone Rule looked at. I was kind of surprised Rule did. I'm still sort of surprised they hired him. It just almost seems like too good to be true. It makes too much sense. And you add Holgorsen and Eckler to the staff,
Dudes,
huge
confidence.
hires. Yeah, huge hires.
Yeah, it is. You're right. I mean, it's just a lot when you compare some of these guys to what Rule started. I mean, just the level of
Clout
and persona and confidence,
aura, all of it. Then it's not just aura. It's not just the intangible stuff. There's tangible results. I mean, Holgersen's record speaks for itself, especially as an offensive coordinator. And Eckler's resume speaks for itself.
I loved when he knew exactly how many punt return yards.
Yeah, 1,320.
Like he spit that out quickly.
He's very proud of special teams. It's his life. He made special teams his life's work.
Good, because we've seen what happens when you don't treat it that way.
Frost. I mean, just say it.
Yeah, I mean, it's not just this
Frost couldn't even name his kickers. I mean,
go back the last decade.
That was a huge red flag during the Frost era when they were having trouble at kicker and Frost couldn't name who they're. I'm like, okay, Frosty, you got to.
Well, and they lost.
Learn your kickers.
Think about 2019. They lost a lot of games. Like the Colorado game, they had to put their punter in overtime to kick field goals because Barrett Pickering was out.
I hope to God those days are over.
Well, remember Lane McCollum?
Oh, yeah.
Yes,
had a move from safety who kicked in high school at Norfolk and had to kick a game winner. And then we found out a week later he had like a season-ending injury. So, I mean, he barely got that thing off the ground.
Oh, yeah. It was a line drive.
I mean, it was like the Dr. Pepper field goal challenge, and that thing just got up and in. Guys, one of my favorite things at those basketball games is watching those guys putt for the Porsche.
Oh, yeah.
It was like, did you ever see the movie American Made where Tom Cruise, he was working for the cartel hauling drugs, and there was like a airstrip in Central America. He had to get the plane over a tree line and with like 1,000 pounds of drugs in it. And he just barely cleared the tree line. It was incredible.
But then like everyone else that tried before him died. Remember? They showed
they did. They were way all the like the cartel guys were gambling on if he'd make it or not. It's one of the best scenes I've ever seen.
All right. When we come back, we heard from Terry Bradden and Addison Williams. We'll give our thoughts on that next. You're listening to the Husker Online Show. We're back here on the Husker Online Show. Sean Callahan, Steve Sipple, Robin Washett. This segment of the show brought to you by Green Chef. And if you're not familiar with Green Chef, it is the #1 meal kit for eating clean. They have pre-portioned, prepared meals with all healthy ingredients. They send it all right to your house. It's ready to go, and it's the highest quality of ingredients, a lot of organic ingredients. This is a way to eat smart. It's a way to eat right, and it's a way to have it all delivered right to your doorstep so you can enjoy it at home and do all the cooking yourself. They have lots of different options and meal things that you can go with. Again, though, they're using high-end, high-quality. Check them out on their website. As they've got tons of great options and items. And we have a great deal for you as well with greenchef.com. Just go to greenchef.com/HuskerFree. Use that code HuskerFree and you'll get started with 2 free salads for 2 months, plus 50% off your first box. Again, that's greenchef.com/Husker free, and you'll get free salads from Green Chef for 2 months, plus 50% off your first box from Green Chef. Thanks again to Green Chef for sponsoring us here on the Husker Online Show. Okay, so we heard from Terry Bradden, we heard from Addison Williams, besides Mike Ekeler, and I thought Terry Bradden was the most fascinating one, just to hear him, because, as an assistant coach, and Robin, you can speak on this in the NFL, you don't really hear from assistants very much, ever. I mean, you're a Giants fan. Do you ever hear the assistant coaches do interviews?
Rarely, and it's not much during the season at all. I mean, they do some stuff like after practices where you get them for a few minutes, but really it's limited. So probably similar to what he's going to be doing here. Like, I'm curious the next time we talk to any of these guys.
Yeah, we only talk to him about 2 or 3 times a year.
So it probably won't be that much of a change for him in that regard. But
seriously,
I thought that for his first kind of introduction, I mean, he commanded the room. He did. He went in there and it's like everybody kind of like, "Hey, I'm Steve Sipple from HuskerOnline. Hi, Steve, how you doing?" And like kind of just made sure that he was in control. And so I think that's a good presence to have, because he's got a big personality to fill in Terrence Knighton. I mean, that guy was as liked and respected as anybody on that staff on the defensive side of the ball. And so, he had to come in and I think make an impact and make the guys that were returning kind of latch on to him very quickly. And we'll see how it goes from here. But I imagine he's off to a pretty good start in that regard.
It's a big job. I think of the assistants, I mean, I got to think it's the hardest job he has because of what they lost.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you're losing, I would just say, 3 of the best football players on the team, offense or defense. 3 of the best players, period.
Nash, Ty.
Yeah, and Jamari Butler. I mean, you're losing your front 3. And I would say Ty Robinson was the best football player on the team, right? Either side of the ball.
Best draft prospect.
Yeah. So, okay, so this is a first year. This is really his first college job other than GA at Bethune-Cookman, other than like a GA type analyst role at Florida Atlantic. What a first job.
Yeah.
I mean, he's got his hands full now. I mean, he's got to get guys going like Elijah Judy and Riley Van Poppel and Cam Lenhart and Keona Davis. Those are the main guys, right? You got to get those guys really playing at a high level.
Mm-hmm.
And now they're, Judy's a senior, and Van Poppel and Lenhart are
Will
juniors.
Height is the big one to watch, and
Keona Davis.
Keona Davis. Oh,
I don't know if he's the big one to watch.
Well, I just going off what John Butler said, like that he is as gifted as any of them, and that he is a guy that they're going to have to fight every offseason to keep. And
right.
he thinks that he'll only be in college football probably for 3 years. Like,
he's only a sophomore.
It's
time though. He's got to go now.
Like his ceiling is high.
It's high, but you want Van Poppel's ceiling to be high, right? And you want Cam Lenhart's ceiling to be high. And
Judy needs to be kind of another guy.
He's got to be a voice in that room too. I mean, because you lose the production, but you also lose your biggest leaders on the defensive side of the ball. I mean, Ty Robinson was as critical of a player leader as there was in that locker room. And so who's going to fill that void, not only for the team, but in that room? When the defensive line is meeting, they need to have a veteran step up and have that voice. And Elijah Judy's been here the longest. He's the oldest guy returning in that room. And so there's a reason that when Bradden was asked about if he's seen any kind of leaders emerge since his arrival, he said it was too early to tell, but Judy, Lenhart, and Van Poppel were the 3 guys that he named. And so, I think that's who you're looking at to be kind of take over the reins as from a leadership standpoint, as well as replacing that production.
Now, Addison Williams, on the other hand, has a room with a lot of guys that have played. It's an interesting discussion, right? Because the secondary struggled a little bit last year, but when you look at the depth chart now, there's a lot of promise. I mean, there's a lot of guys that played a lot of football. He walks into I think a little better situation. You got Singleton back. You got Sierra Wright. You got Marquise Buford. You got Mario Buford. I'm missing guys. You got Donovan Jones coming back. Who played,
Caleb Benning.
Did you say Hartzog?
Hartzog. Thank you.
And then the 3 transfers.
Yeah.
Amir Khan, who started at Southern Illinois, Andrew Marshall, who started at Idaho, and Justin Rhett, who, in terms of recruiting rankings, is maybe the highest ranked guy in that whole room.
And as far as Addison Williams goes, you saw yesterday, wasn't it kind of interesting to you guys? You saw Eckler come in and he's got that big energy.
Mhm.
Then you saw Bradden come in with all that energy. Now Williams is more reserved, and I appreciate that. I appreciate the fact he didn't try to be something he's not.
Mhm.
He's a more reserved guy. That works too. You got to be who you are. I was telling Sean, like as an athlete, I almost like coaches who are more reserved.
Mhm.
I didn't need all the energy.
Well, and there's can be a difference too with how a guy presents himself in a press conference podium and how he's, on the field
For sure.
with practicing with guys or in the room with meetings. Like I think that you can have two different kind of personas, where the one you display publicly and the one that you show to your guys, and the latter is far more important in my opinion.
Williams had a very good resume as a defensive
Mhm.
coordinator. If you look back at the 2023 USF defense, it was an excellent defense, and it was really good against the pass.
And he was also
He was the coordinator.
best recruiter for Central Florida, not South Florida.
Yeah, I said UCF.
Oh, I thought you said USF. Sorry.
No, I said
I
UCF.
misheard you.
No, we are.
I don't want you to get cooked.
Yeah, we got to
No,
do some
we're-
fact checking.
No,
here.
we're on probation. No, I said UCF. I better have.
But he was a key recruiter there too, and he will be a key recruiter for this staff in
Mhm.
Florida and Georgia.
Is that right?
And now recruiting, it's not as much about high school. Yeah, you might be looking to get 12 to 15 high school guys a year, and so it's not trying to find 25 guys anymore. So this is where if he can get you 4 or 5 guys down there with Phil Simpson,
Mhm.
and then you get your Kansas City, Texas guys from Mosey, your St. Louis guys from Keith Williams.
There you
and
go.
You sprinkle in a couple in-state guys. That's
Yep.
it. That's
There you
recruiting
go.
now. I mean,
Yep.
that's the recruiting will never be as simplified probably as it is now in terms of the high school levels, because you don't need as many, because the general manager, when he gets going, is going to have to decide how they want to divvy out their money and go after the portal guys
So
too.
what you're essentially saying is one guy like that can have a bigger overall impact. If you're only recruiting 12 to 15 and one guy pulls 5 or 4 from the Southeast, that's a big impact on that class.
Mhm.
And then Pat Stewart, will get going here this week. I mean, I think
GM.
he started actually here on Wednesday.
Today.
I believe Wednesday is his first day today as we're taping. And we're not scheduled to hear from him, but I'm sure we will at some point.
What do you guys think about this now? Think about what you just said. He's the GM.
Mhm.
I think you got to hear from him, right?
Well,
You got to hear from him
If
regularly.
they're gonna pay him 800 to $1 million, that's a pretty important position.
Mhm. I mean, you're basically taking on roster management. So that's a pretty critical component now to college football.
Hold on, though. See, it's an interesting conversation because you're going to be asking him head coach questions. He's not the head coach.
Yeah, like personnel decisions.
Right.
And
Personnel
whatnot.
decision question.
So maybe not.
I don't know. Like Sean said, if he's making 800 to $1 million, you almost gotta. He's almost duty bound to talk to the public.
Well, remember, Rule, we held press conferences with everybody from Ryan Callahan to Sean Patton
Yeah.
to Dr. Elza. I mean, so yeah, Rule is going to be. We're going to do something. You know how Matt Rule has done this. I mean, he has made all these people from the lowest levels of the recruiting operation to the highest levels available.
He has. It's been cut down a little bit. Like you've talked about the assistants only being available a couple times a year. That it used to be every week.
Yeah, it used to just be they all came in the room at once,
Mhm.
and you had 15 minutes to figure it out. And I prefer personally that model than the
Podium.
podium where we're all kind of on the same guided hunting trip and we're all having to go after the same buffalo at that point. I mean, I prefer it where you can kind of flank around and do what you want to do.
Yeah, exactly.
Because I don't want the same 15 minutes that you got. I want
Right.
my own 15 minutes that I'm trying. And that
No, I
was
totally understand.
that was a more effective way. But I get it. I mean, the coach wants to probably have a little bit more control over the setting and the environment, because we got better stuff in the old way.
Now, for reference, Michael Lombardi, the $1.5 million GM at North Carolina, he has done interviews. So I would expect Nebraska
Oh,
to
yeah.
do the same. So it's just a matter of when, not if.
I know what you're talking about. Lombardi was addressing on McAfee the hard knocks matter.
Mhm.
That's kind of a head coach conversation,
Well,
right?
I mean, you're making that kind of money. You have that much value to the staff. Maybe you have the platform to talk about stuff like that.
So next week, though, we hear from Rule and 2 to 4 players. I can't imagine we'd hear from him in that setting.
Probably not.
And then spring breaks the following week. So would we hear from him maybe after all that's over? I don't know. I guess we'll see, because he's probably trying to figure things out too. I mean, you're not just going to throw him up there
Right. It's so early.
until he knows what's going on here.
Even these position coaches, you like try to ask them about their rooms. Like, guys, I've been here for like 2 weeks.
Yeah,
Like,
asking Mike Ekeler
trying to learn
about
names.
last
right
year's
now.
problems.
It's like,
He didn't want to even go there.
No, but here's the thing about that. I'm glad you mentioned that. I know how he answered the question. Come on. Do you think he just didn't watch any film of Nebraska last year? He knows everything.
He's being
that
respectful.
happened. Yeah, he's being respectful, but he knows everything that happened on special.
And he knows that's why he's here.
Right. I mean, I know he was being respectful, and I appreciate that.
Okay, when we come back, Abby Barmore will join the program. We'll take your questions in the mailbag. You're listening here to the Husker Online Show. And we're back here on the Husker Online Show. Sean Callahan, Steve Sipple, Robin Washut, Abby Barmore joining us. Before we get to the mailbag, Stephen M. Sipple, the mailbag brought to you by who?
Larson Motors. I think we should try to sell some cars. If you're looking for one, if you're looking for a new vehicle, go for a new experience at Larson Motors in Nebraska City. Think about Larson Motors. It's one of the Midwest's only dealerships with all the major brands in one location. Find your new Chevrolet, GMC, Hummer, Ford, Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, or Ram never has been easier. So start your new experience today at LarsonMotorGroup.com or at Larson Motors in Nebraska City. Larson Motors. Real people,
Real
deals.
real people, real deals. Yep.
All right, Abby. Where are we going at first here?
Which new coach's interview has impressed you the most?
I would say Eckler. Just the confidence level he has, and I mean, he's not afraid to bring it.
He's 53. That helps. He's an older coach now. I mean, he's seasoned, so he has experience at the podium. What do you say, Rob?
yeah, he's got to be up there just because of the role that he's taking on and how critical that's going to be to Nebraska's success. I mean, there's probably not a new addition to this staff that has more of a responsibility than fixing special teams that Mike Ekeler has. So I put the way that he kind of made his first impression on a fairly daunting task. I think he set the tone the right way.
Who have we heard from?
Phil Snow.
Oh, Snow was. I thought Snow was really impressive. Here's why I like Snow. Phil Snow and who was it? I interrupted you last week.
Phil Simpson,
Shorts,
and Dikeel Shorts.
Yeah. So we've heard from 5 now. Here's why I liked Phil Simpson. I liked the way he communicated, not rambling, not like me. I mean, I like guys who are succinct. He was to the point, didn't waste a lot of words. He was economical with his words, and I like those kind of appearances.
You can see why he's a good recruiter. I mean, just the way that he kind of carries himself, like you could see that how he can connect with younger guys.
He gets right to the point.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't waste a lot of energy.
he'll get Nebraska and Miami to where they'll
Already
get
has.
a couple guys.
Snow or Simpson?
Simpson.
Okay, now we're talking about Snow.
Oh, I thought you were talking about
Oh.
Simpson. I thought you were talking about Simpson.
I thought
The
you were
whole
talking about
time?
Simpson.
Yeah.
No, I was talking about Snow.
We're doing a great job.
Yeah,
I
we're
thought
having
you were-
trouble on
Good
this
job,
show.
team.
I was talking about Phil Snow.
Yeah, I don't know how much recruiting.
Well,
Phil
Simpson didn't
Snow's gonna
exactly use a lot of words either, though. He was
Okay.
pretty to the message.
Okay.
But yeah, Snow was old school. I mean, he looked like Al Pacino going up there.
He's 69, so he's he knows this game.
do. Mhm.
So I'll go back to Snow since you guys thought I was talking about Simpson. No, I was talking about Phil Snow.
Okay.
And I just like the way he got to the point. If you go back and look at it, didn't use a lot of sentences, just that's the way I think that's a good way to coach. Not a lot of extra words.
Mhm.
All right, what do you got next?
Okay,
Abby?
next one. With spring practice kicking off and the 2025 season on the horizon, what is one under the radar storyline that you think could make a big impact on this team?
Sean mentioned one. Mention it again, Sean.
Kicker?
Yeah.
I mean, that's a random one.
Alvano.
I just think the transfers in general, like we know the obvious ones that are going to play, like Dane Key and Hunter, and the tackles like Pritchett and Rocco on the interior. McCullough. But is there something else there? Is there going to be like a surprise defensive back? Is there going to be something in the transfer room that emerges that we didn't realize was there?
How about Latovsky to right tackle, maybe?
That's a thing to watch.
Mm.
But Corcoran and
Teddy.
Prohaska are both wild cards.
Yeah, they're wild cards. You hear some talk about Latovsky maybe playing tackle.
Sledge at center.
You hear some legit talk. Now, I don't know how far it'll go. But, yeah, I think Sledge is a good one, too. I think if you talk to people behind the scenes, so to speak, you will hear that they're trying to get Sledge ready.
Mm-hmm.
So those are good ones right there. Latovsky, maybe a right tackle candidate, getting the young guy Sledge ready to roll.
How about in the secondary? We talked about the returning experience that they have. They got a bunch of guys with a lot of starts under their belts. They also have a stable full of young upcoming talents, including guys like Amari Sanders, guys like Donovan Jones, who played more snaps in the bowl game than he had his entire career, and you got a new position coach. So what you've done in the past doesn't carry as much weight maybe as it did if you had the same coach. And so that competition between young guys that are ready to kind of make their push and the returning veterans, we'll see if it's going to be chalk with that depth chart.
All right, what's next, Abby?
Okay. Which Nebraska football player that didn't pan out baffled you the most?
Oh, gosh.
You can pick one anyway.
First one comes to mind is Omar Manning.
Okay.
That's a good one, Robert.
That guy was built like Terrell Owens, and he looked like he was going to be a first-round draft pick just by looking at him from an eyeball test, and it just never materialized. Unfortunate.
Well, like Carl Nix is one where he ended up becoming the highest paid guard in the NFL at that time by the New Orleans Saints. But Nebraska, we never got that kind of play from him here.
He was pretty good though, right? Started.
Yeah, his first year though he didn't start, and then his second year he did. That was the 07 kind of throwaway year when things kind of went off the tracks.
06
he had a foot issue.
It was one of the best. He was a very direct person too. Remember when he got held out of the first half of the Cotton Bowl? Do you remember that, Sean? And I was interviewing him in the weeks prior during practice. I always remember how he was a badass. He said something like, "I'm going to be held out." I'm like, "What?" He goes, "Yeah, I'm going home for Christmas. They told me I couldn't go home for Christmas, but I'm going." I'm like, okay. He goes, they can't tell me not to go.
Well, when he moved to Nebraska,
they suspended
from the junior college. He was married,
and
evidently his wife at that time must not have wanted to come, and she gave him divorce papers before he moved to Nebraska. That was back when the junior college guys. There was a little bit more to the stories than some of those guys you'd bring in.
Yeah, I'm horrible at these things. You guys identified two good ones. Guys that I thought would pan out that didn't.
He really
some
reached
guys
here.
Some guys just caught in some. You can think of a lot of running backs who just got caught in depth chart situations.
What about like D'Angelo Evans?
No, he panned out.
Kinda.
He outrushed Priest Holmes, Ricky Williams, and Amon Green in a Big 12 championship.
It was such a short-lived window that he had.
But it wasn't by a complete bust.
I think if you put Jay Sims on this roster, he might be your starter. In fact, I would say he would be your starter. He was a fifth string guy back then. You never really saw him. You saw him a little bit in games, but if you guys think back, look at him. He was like 6'2", 215, and was probably the fastest guy in the room. He could really go. That's one I always wonder about.
I'm trying to remember, was there a linebacker named Chris Taylor? Was that his name?
Oh.
And he got hurt, but he was like the Texas high school football player.
The
running back. That was the running back. But there was a linebacker in that era too that came in highly ranked.
There's a running back named Taylor.
Adam Taylor was the running back.
Blew out his knee.
That was the guy I thought
he looked
was
like Adrian Peterson coming out of high school.
Adam Taylor. But then there was a linebacker in like that 08, 09 era, that unbelievable film. He was Texas high school defensive player of the year and didn't even make it a year here. He was gone. And that's recruiting. Leon Jackson, who would have thought he'd be
Leon Jackson?
He was amazing. Justin Tomerlin, rest in peace. There were some good dudes that came here. These guys will be really good. They never ended up panning out.
Was Leon Jackson a running back?
So they tried running back.
From Seattle. Right.
You had Cody Glenn, Leon Jackson, and Marlon Lucky all in the same recruiting class.
We're in danger zone, by the way, right now on names. It's Leon Jackson for sure.
Yes.
Yeah, 100% sure.
Otto?
Confirmed.
Okay. Taylor, kind of Adam Taylor.
Adam Taylor. That's a good one.
Yeah.
Who was the running
go
back?
Back to a lot of running backs. Like Quentin Castile. Could you put him on that list?
Maybe.
He flashed.
What about Braylon Hurd?
Yeah,
I mean,
kinda.
he like went to Kentucky and did well,
He
but
did.
like
Well.
I mean, he was like Aaron Green. He went to TCU and did well.
Blew up.
But like, look at that core. I mean, Amir,
Aaron
they
Green
still had
got beat
Amir
out by
Abdullah.
Amir, though. That's
Yeah.
why. I'll give you a random one I thought was going to be good. Robin Miller.
Who?
Oh God,
Great
people were saying that people put the next Mike Rozier tag on him. I remember
Hello.
that.
Well, we'd go over there and watch the film on signing day, pre-internet era, pre-huddle, obviously, and they would put a film together just for the media, and we'd go in the coach's office. And I remember one year Lance Leipold presented the film to us when he was working.
Robin Miller never really got off the ground.
No,
I mean, he ran into the tree line. He never got off the ground.
All right, final question, Abby.
What was your favorite video game as a kid?
Ooh,
You guys go.
I used to love the game Double Dragon.
Yeah, I know that one.
But it was so hard to the part that was always hard to get by early in the game is you had to take on these two giants and they'd come out of this cave and they'd come through the wall and it'd be like, and they'd come out of the wall and you'd have to fight in two. And they would just go. I mean, it was, and my daughter has Nintendo Switch.
Incredible sound.
And I've played, and even as a grown man, I have a hard time figuring out that level.
Yeah, grown man in court.
Contra.
Go ahead.
Tecmo Super Bowl. I mean, that game sparked my love for football, the NFL. I knew every player on the New York Giants team by name, the offensive line, because I would just go through the roster. I knew everybody. And then that translated into the EA college football games, NCAA football. So those two, it was Super Tecmo Bowl and then NCAA.
You guys are from a much different era. I never played like video games like you play. I wouldn't know how to do the controller or anything.
You never
like
played
that.
like NES?
No,
Tecmo Bowl?
not with the grandkid. Nothing. I sat down a couple times and tried it, but I was so out of my league. Pong. I mean, you know, that was a game, right?
Which one? Pong? Yeah.
Paul.
Yeah. I mean,
Jesus.
that was fun.
You're really showing your age here.
Well, I'm 58, so
We
when
used
I was
to have a
kid-
It
wheel
was
and
like
a
two
stick.
sticks,
Yeah.
and you'd be like, doom,
Yeah.
doom,
Yeah.
doom.
We played jacks.
Even like when you play Zelda too, like Zelda is such a hard game.
Pong.
Pong.
It's like,
I did
it's like the
play
very
Jacks.
first video game ever made.
I did play Jacks, by the way.
I'll bet you did.
Hey,
Oh, look,
listen,
There it is.
Simple.
Yes, Megan.
Pong.
there it is. Good job, Megan.
Is that the TV from your apartment Sip, or your house?
Is that you, Sybil?
Yep.
It was
See,
fun.
Can you get an
Young Sip.
HDMI jack in that TV?
He's
Sip?
a young
Yeah.
sip.
Stop it. It was. Ask Dominic those questions.
All right.
He handles my TV work.
Thank you, Abby Barmore. Did you have a favorite video
Oh,
game?
yeah. What's that?
Yes, Mario Kart.
Yeah,
Woo!
that's a good one.
Mario
I
Kart's
played a
timeless.
lot of Mario Kart
is
and like
that?
Just Dance on the Wii. We
Oh,
played
okay.
hours and hours of things on the Wii. It was awesome.
All right. When we come back, we'll close the show. We'll talk Nebraska basketball and where they come from their loss after Ohio State. You're listening to the Husker Online Show. Final segment of the Husker Online Show. Sean Callahan, Steve Sipple, Robin Washut. If you're not a member of Husker Online, give us a shot. Try us out. We're going to give you the first week for $1. Just go to HuskerOnline.com. Get your first week for $1 to try us out. But let's get into Nebraska basketball, Robin, because it's just been an excruciating month. With the losses back to Maryland and Michigan and Minnesota, and now the most recent one here at Ohio State, where Nebraska seemingly had every opportunity. Burke only makes 2 of his 4 free throws. Bryce makes just 1 of 2 in a key moment. There were some key non-technical foul calls, obviously a out-of-bounds play situation. I mean, that was about as frustrated as I've been seeing some blown officiating calls in a game in a long time. Because the game and the margin was that tight, and missing 2 technical fouls, that out of bounds sequence, and Nebraska comes up short again.
Yeah, and I generally kind of my own personal rule is to not like talk too much about officiating, because
Stay on
guess
that.
what? It's going to be unpredictable, all that sort of stuff from game to game. But this was a situation, and I know there were common responses. Well, don't put yourself in a position where officials can dictate how the game is going to end. Well, Nebraska wouldn't have been in that position had some of those calls gone the way they should have gone. And, the flagrant foul on Bryce Williams, like, all right, at least that's like an objective call. The refs saw it as intentional. I didn't. But then you see ones like at the end of the first half where Bryce gets hit in the mouth, no call. And it's like the exact same thing. You know, you're hit in the face. You're supposed to review everything when any part of a defender's body hits an offensive player's face. So that didn't happen. That's frustrating. And then like just the taunting after an Ohio State player like stands over, what was it, a Season or something, and like screaming at him. And then the Ohio State player who spiked the ball twice, including the second one, it bounces like above the rim. That should be an immediate technical foul. No foul called. The out of bounds play late in the end of the second or first overtime where it was hit by Parrish and it may have grazed Decision's hands. They went to review it and ruled that that was substantial enough evidence to overturn the call on the court, gave Ohio State possession. They score to make it a 6-point lead. So and then obviously the out of bounds call where the guy, there's supposed to be a 3-foot restriction on the sideline on a dead ball. He can move his feet, but he can't leave the 3-foot area. And most people that saw that play would say he passed that 3 feet in a big way. So rather than it being Nebraska's ball with the chance to win it with 3.3 seconds left, Ohio State gets it, hits a free throw, game over. So that is what my frustration is yes, Nebraska missed chances. Yes, Bryce could have put them ahead when he missed his only free throw of the night at the end of regulation, but he missed it. Berke missed a bunch of shots that were open, like you said, in his free throws and clutch moments and missed it. Nebraska couldn't finish possessions on defensive rebounds, gave Ohio State extra chances. So a lot of the things that have led to all these missed opportunities going all the way back to really the start of January happened, especially on the defensive end of the floor. But they wouldn't have been in that situation, in my opinion, had the officials done a better job of calling the obvious calls that they didn't make.
Bryce Williams, 43 points.
Broke the Piekowski record.
Robin pointed out in his column, Bryce Williams scores 20 of Nebraska's 25 points over the first and second overtimes.
Mm-hmm.
That's remarkable clutch play. I mean, that's remarkable.
So that's why he missed that free throw, but I'm not putting any of the blame on Bryce Williams. The only reason that game was competitive was because of him. He scored 43 points and shot 55% from the field. He hit 5 of 9 threes, and he was 6 of 7 at the free throw line. Like, he couldn't do much more than that.
No.
And that's why Fred Hoiberg after the game said, you know, if there's any debate remaining about whether Bryce Williams is a first-team All-Big Ten selection, then I don't know what more he can do outside of his team winning more games. Because individually, he's been the best scorer in the Big Ten. He's been the best player on his team, and the only reason his team is even remotely competitive for an NCAA tournament bid.
There are times he's unstoppable. And you just can't say that about many guys.
Because he's got that old man game. That's
he now leads the Big
What do you mean the old man game?
Mid-range jump shots.
Yep.
You know, like the kind of the fadeaways. Like Stephen Bardo said it himself. He's like, he called it into like an old school type of game.
No
like,
doubt. I just wanted you to elaborate.
Yeah, like the types of stuff that you saw in the late 80s, early 90s, even late 90s.
Better times, Rob.
Bryce does those things. And, you know, for an analytics guy like Fred Hoiberg, I'm sure that was hard for him, but he realized that this is your best source of offense, and you let Bryce do what he does.
He now leads the Big Ten in scoring at 20.4. Nick Martellini, Martinelli is second at 19.9. So pretty good chance that Bryce will win the scoring title, which I'd love to know the data on that, Robin. When was the last time a Nebraska player won a league scoring title?
James Palmer?
Did he lead the Big Ten in scoring?
Pretty sure he did.
That's pretty remarkable. It's hard to do. That's why
really hard.
I didn't realize that on the team with that many other good players.
It's in the game notes that Seamus put out. I have to go back and read, but I'm pretty sure that's what it said. That was James Palmer. If it wasn't James Palmer, then it was Petaway.
Okay.
But yeah, you look at that number at 20. He's the only player in the Big Ten now over 20 a game.
The bad news, Berke, since he's come back, is now 1 for 18 from the field. I mean, that's a startling number. 1 for 18 in 3 games.
Yep.
That's not what you expected.
It's borderline unplayable offensively. Now, I understand what he brings defensively. And in the second half, he was playing good defense down the stretch that let Nebraska kind of make that comeback and get into it. So, like, there's value there. It's undeniable that his presence defensively is the best option that they have, especially against versatile bigs. But it's like kind of like the conversation last year where, like, Casey, he was this unbelievable talent offensively, but there were matchups where he just you couldn't play him on the defensive end. And right now, that's kind of a situation Nebraska's in where, you know, okay, you got to make a decision. Do you just let Berke kind of shoot it out and try to find his rhythm, or do you just say, hey, you're here to play defense? You know, you're going to be Braxton Mia.
That's a good question.
You know, like,
because he's not like, when you watch him shoot, it's a nice looking shot. I mean,
he's got all the attributes and intangibles that you would want as a potential pro prospect, but it's just not there right now. And
Teams
I
are
think,
still guarding him. They're not letting him shoot wide open.
yeah,
because he can shoot it.
yeah. And so like the last thing that you want is for him to get that confidence back, because as we've seen last time they played Ohio State, when he's good, Nebraska is darn near unbeatable. So, that's going to be, again, the X factor that's been all season. It's going to continue on the rest of the way.
All right, briefly, Robin, Sunday, 11:30 a.m., Pinnacle Bank Arena, Iowa comes to town. No guarantees right now with a loss that Nebraska makes the Big Ten tourney. So first and foremost, they got to win this game to get to Indy, and they got to win this game and at least probably one more in Indy, if not two more, to get in the NCAA tournament.
Yeah, I'd say 2 minimum.
One
Two
more?
minimum.
Come on, Sean.
Yeah, but
It's
a win over Rutgers isn't going to get you into the tournament. So they got to get.
Just don't hand out NCAA.
Well, the bubble's
Yes,
crap,
so
though.
that's
Like,
the best thing in Nebraska's favor right
there
now.
is no bubble. Like, there's no the mid majors don't exist anymore.
They've sputtered out as much as they had, and they're still technically in the conversation. Now they got a lot of work to do, and it starts. You absolutely have to beat Iowa. If you don't beat Iowa, there's a very realistic chance you're not even making the conference tournament. So that is. We talk about all these must wins they have. This is the biggest one yet, because your season ends if you lose on Sunday.
And Robin, is there like an enthusiasm if they don't make the NCAA, like to play in one of the 2 postseason tournaments? Like, because
Good question, Sean.
do you really sense that? I mean, they were this close to the real thing if they don't make it, and then you're going to send them off to play. And I mean, do you really think there's going to be a lot of excitement behind that?
NIT?
Well, so there's the NIT, then there's also the college basketball crown in Las Vegas, the new tournament that just started this year. It's going to be aired on Fox, and it is a high major driven postseason tournament. But basically what they're trying to do is compete with the NIT to get the at-large bubble teams that don't make the NCAA tournament and give them kind of a destination spot where
Pay 'em?
it's going to be a respectable field. And I don't know about the payments, but I haven't read anything about that. But it's going to be one of those things where like it's a more appealing postseason tournament for high majors. So the Big Ten has 2 automatic bids to the CBC, College Basketball
Do you
Crown.
know how you make it pay?
The SEC has 2 automatic bids. And so like they're trying to draw those types of teams to that tournament. So I'll be curious. If this NCAA tournament dream finally ends, would they prefer the CBC or the NIT?
Don't you make it? You make it appealing by giving them NIL money.
And there's already a regular.
Where's that
season
money
stuff like
coming
that.
from?
How
How they're not going
tournament
to
organized.
yeah, but how are they going to make money on it? Where's the? They're not going to get big crowds.
Well, the TV,
But
it's on FS1. Every game's going to be on FS1.
Network money
Yeah,
flows.
the TV money.
Yeah, they're going to have to do something to entice.
Just think if they got North Carolina and Nebraska in the CBC. Like
North Carolina won't play in something like
they
that.
might. It's not the NIT.
That's what I'm suggesting. If you give them a
That's what I'm saying, and especially if there's the financial incentive to it.
How-
Like the NIT, I think you
what's the
gotta pay.
ROI on that?
I don't know. They've never done it before, so we don't know.
what's the ROI on NIL period?
Well, I'm just saying.
Yeah, good.
But the organizers, like, they're just going to burn $1 million to play the play. I mean, they're not.
Fox is going to.
That's what NIL is. Rich people burning money with limited return on investment.
I would
That's
like the Vegas
definition of
tournament.
NIL.
After the NIT screwed Nebraska that one year where they had the really good
Yes,
record,
made him a 5.
and they made them a
seed.
5 seed, and they sent them to Mississippi State. Nebraska was
It
fourth
was a
place.
nightmare.
They were fourth place in
Yeah.
the Big Ten,
It was
That
a
alone
and they
should
got
be
a 5 seed in the NIT.
a double bird from Nebraska
Like,
to the NIT.
I mean, I'll never
Still-
forget that.
double
Robin,
barrel,
Robin.
double barrel.
Robin.
They
It was a long
screwed
time
Nebraska.
ago. I
Nebraska
know.
beat Michigan
Screw
that year,
Nebraska.
who played for the national title.
Statute of limitations, Rob.
I don't care.
But they should have
still
hosted
bitter.
at least one. They should have hosted at least but one
Yes.
game.
Oh, I agree.
Absolutely,
But
they
it's a long
should have.
time.
I know. I'm not forgetting. It was about 10
You're
years ago.
still
All right.
rolling mad. What was that over 10 years ago?
No, close.
All right, guys. So we'll be back next week. We're going to have a
Calm down.
special spring football preview show. So we're going to talk more about big picture spring football things in our next show. So Robin can stay on top of his postseason basketball schedule. But we'll hit on spring football preview stuff on our next Husker Online show.
Okay.
And also another headline show later in the week. But for Abby Barmore, Steve Sipple, Robin Washett, I'm Sean Callahan.